Welcome from joining the Infinity Loop group. I'm Riley.
I'm Krista. We're good. All right.
Wonderful. Just want to emphasize what our purpose and goal is on this is, to really start a conversation. So if there's things that we bring up that you agree with, we appreciate the comments to continue that conversation. Things you'd like us to dive more in deep or you question, please, the more we conversate, the more that these tools can help others.
Yeah, what you don't agree with.
Separateness. Love is seeing yourself in another person. Carl Jung. And I think this is so important. I know Joe Rogan likes to use the example of seeing people as a baby. We've all been a baby before, and if you can see that in people, you start to have a little more empathy for them. And I always liked that imagery.
You know what I like about that you're bringing up is the last podcast, Leo was talking about the coping mechanisms that were developed when you're little, and you think about where before age 8.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think most people, their coping mechanism is defined by the time they're 7 years old.
Right. So when you think about, how is that a coping mechanism that they had as a little one, and then reflecting, you go back to the red pouch. And how does that reflect my coping mechanisms that I have, right? And I think if we, I use that quote, Carl Jung's quote, love is seeing yourself in another, as a regular, again, it's in my sound book, like and that steps me into the infinity loop, having infinity loop eyes, seeing myself in the other. That is connection. That is the awareness. And that is the inquiry. How am I like that other person?
Well, and now it will immediately change how you interact with that person too.
Yeah, it will. That is a way in to drop into the infinity loop and in the true self. Love is, Carl Jung was a mystic, seeing yourself in another. Yeah. Leo's got some great wisdom. And this I got right from him. He said, I thought I could be with someone and still have my separateness. That way I could blame all the bad parts on the quote unquote other and make myself good. I could look good and win that way. But the separateness was an illusion. I was always one with my other. I just couldn't see it. Not one in a way I thought, sexually, physically, but one in the way, Krista, you talk about the aspens. Underneath it all, we're all connected. We're all flawed, both good and bad, all broken, all crazy, meaning we make huge mistakes and seemingly illogical choices when we think we should know better, but we don't. Otherwise, we would. That's that, forgive them for we know not what they do, meaning we really are only acting to the highest level of our consciousness of what we are, even when we know what's right and we're not doing it, we don't have the consciousness to choose what's right. Otherwise, we would. We learn from each other all the time in every moment. And it's painful and humbling and perfect, leading us on the path to wholeness, which is always better than being right. And the right thing is coming from our judgments and our separateness. We can feel good about ourselves. We can feel right. We can feel better because we're not seeing ourselves in the other.
Well, do you want to be right or do you want to be connected?
Yeah, and I always sort of misunderstood that. Like, do you want to be right or do you want to be loved?
I've heard it, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And to me, I don't like that because that is going, hey, don't believe the truth for the sacrifice of making someone happy. And that's why I like how we kind of twisted it about connection, right? It's like, how do we, you you don't worry about being right because you focus on the connection, which is more important than being right. But at the end of the day, will get you both to the right place, ideally, you know?
It's that Instagram quote we talked about that I had said, there is an energy I get from being separate, superior, and important. And there's an energy I get from connection. One makes my life very small and one lets me touch infinity. And that thing about being right is the ego. It's the ego hit. I'm right.
That's the separate, superior.
That's the separate self. I'm right. I'm right. You can feel it in, they say even about narcissism is you can pick it up in the haughtiness. You can pick it up from the look, like their behavior, or I keep saying narcissistic behavior. It has a certain, waltz to it. And it's, I'm right. I need the ego hit because I need to compensate for the illusion that I'm separate. And the separate self, the ego self, is always insecure and constantly needs to juggle to be okay. It needs to compete, compare, conflict, condemn.
It's the empty cup that's looking for others to fill it up.
And fill it up by saying...
By admiration, by praise, by acknowledgement, by attention.
Or by our own assessment of, at least I'm not like that person. And we're just constantly going around, human beings, the ego is constantly going around going, how do I negotiate this moment and this moment and this moment and this moment when we're in our separate self to feel okay, to be superior, to know who am I in comparison to you in this moment. If you have a true I-thou relationship, you can't objectify. That's dropping into the infinity loop. When it's so interesting because it's just like daily I learn what does it mean to live in the infinity loop. And that is it. You are in that's the depth of connection, is there is no objectifying. You are truly seeing yourself in another. Like that would be kind of one of our elevator pitches, is the infinity loop is seeing yourself in another. It is dropped in that kind of connection, that field that is, you are going, I'm aware now that we are all one. We're the aspen trees, that we are all one giant organism, even though we look like two, little quaking little fragile aspens blowing in the wind. We're actually, and what if I just drop into that field? What opens up? And that is the field of love. That is, I would call the psychedelic brain field. And I can feel it. You can feel it, right? When it happens, you're like, whoa, this feels so good because it's it's reality. It's the truth. It's only when you're separate, superior, inferior, and important that you see the other as a way to feel good about yourself. That's when we're in our false self.
It's kind of a lot like what we were talking about, the bullying. You only bully when you're feeling superior or inferior, but mainly separate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly. Then the other person is seen as some threat to your social status. They're getting to be the second most popular girl. You got to take them out. It's completely. This is so interesting because they talk about how junior high kids struggle so much. And the stories I was telling in the last podcast, they happened in junior high. And Leo had that vision. It was a dream, and he came over to the house and he was weeping. And he said, I saw this vision. And of course, this is metaphorically, but he says, I was seeing all these junior high kids, these buses coming up, and these junior high kids getting off the bus, and you are going to be teaching them the infinity loop kids, and how much I am seeing especially with the neuroplasticity is so great in children. They can learn and change so quickly. But this is the age where they really have the capacity to go, oh, you can go down two paths. You can go down strengthening the false self, and social media is going to even mess you up more in that. Or this is the time to ground into touching into what does it mean, what does it feel like to be in the true self that is that place of connection, of the I, thou, not the objectifying and looking upon one another that way. Oh, may it be, may it be. That's when we see ourselves as separate. We either see people as a way to get what we want, a way to look good, or in our way. You can't do that when you're one with yourself and one with another person. That's why you really, what I would call true integrated spirituality, the mystical mind, you cannot be a religious judger. That's when C.S. Lewis says your religion's going to could make you a whole lot better. It's actually like, if your religion doesn't make you a whole lot better,
It's probably making you a whole lot worse.
It's going to make you a whole lot worse. And where that's the part that has turned people off and said, God, they're so judgmental, these religious people, is that when they get into the separate self and they go, at least I'm not like that, and you can feel that judgmental, angry, reactive energy toward you because they are not dropping into the field of seeing themselves in you. That is the reactive. That's when we feel judged, not because someone's holding us accountable. It's there's no love in there because they haven't dropped into the field. They are seeing themselves as superior. They're not kicking your ass because they love you so much. It's in such separateness.
Well, I like what you said too about someone holding you accountable. Being held accountable to someone else's standards isn't healthy, right? So a lot of that is people projecting their standards onto others and then judging others for not following their standards. Right? I would say that's where the religious base of it is not only is it people projecting their values onto other people and then the judgment with the projection of the values.
Yeah. It's just all the different ways we are medicating our shame, which is coming from our separateness. We're naked and ashamed because we're in this separateness. So we constantly have to go, I'm better, I'm okay in this moment when I find disgust in your behavior. There's no inquiry when we're in that energy. How do I build a bridge to help somebody see, not just come with disgust that I don't like their behavior? Porn is a classic objectification model. It's built on people's illusion of separateness. And I would say it's also built on that because there is such a life force that happens when you are in connection where you don't need to lean into just the gratification because the life that happens of how we are wired when we have true, beautiful connection with another human being.
I think porn made it more difficult to be in the present moment when I was being intimate with partners, which creates more separation when having intimacy, which I think is probably the base of why none of those situations continue. Even if the connection was built, the connection was never really established in a healthy format because of kind of my own base porn, viewing, which is something I'm working on myself.
So you're not even present and leaning into it. It's into the gratification.
Yeah, I mean, I think porn stimulates your brain so much that you have so many sexual things up in your mind that you aren't actually being in the moment present with the sexual experience that you're going through. At least from my experience, definitely it's been a hurdle getting over and understanding the value of really appreciating the person I'm making love to.
Mm-hmm. It shows how desperate we are to try to bridge that separateness. People who are addicted to porn are aching for oneness. The porn industry gives them the hope of that while pandering to their false self. That's why most porn involves the man being separate, superior, important, and objectifying women. When someone intervenes in that addiction to separateness, the first thing they work on is connection. And to you, Krista, even though we no longer live together, I see myself more one with you now than ever. That makes me choke up. I was reading that this morning and it made me choke up.
How you fall into separateness just like other people do. In what ways will you bring more awareness to that in our society?
So the way I bring more awareness into society, we bring into society and change the world,
is our podcast.
Yeah, it's our podcast. And it's about how we are in the world. How you said a great thing is that leaders speak up. And so when we are connected, and that's also going back to yoga and the infinity loop. My friend was talking about Kundalini yoga, and it's like this field that you create, your whole, energetic body is that you walk in the room with so much connection because you see yourself in another. You have so much self-awareness of what's going on in your own body. You're not having to flee and be constantly negotiating. Oh, I feel inferior. How do I feel better? Oh, I'm in my ego mind. I'm not enough. That person threatens me. So the more I'm aware of what's going on, and then the inquiry can lead us into the true self of, what is true? Oh, why are you feeling that? You're in scarcity. How do you come back? You come back into connection that we are all one.
So you're saying you're using your inquiry to break people out of their own separateness? Using
self-inquiry to break yourself out of. So you're walking in connection, you're aware of what's going on with you. And if you are in scarcity, if you are in separateness, the inquiry can get you back into the connected place, right? So it starts with self-inquiry. And then when you hear someone, you see the whole ego dance, you see the unconsciousness going on, you can speak up by the way you give respect to another person, by the way you see another person as not seeing yourself in the other person. And so by giving that other person dignity, by showing that you are so connected and like them, they can feel it. They can feel the connection. It demonstrates to the whole room a different energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're modeling it, you're speaking up, and then how do I, when I know I'm in that place, it's the awareness piece. So you're connected to yourself and you become inner still and you're like, wow, I'm feeling threatened right now. I'm feeling not okay. My ego is feeling not loved. I need to do my tricks to put myself okay again. And you have that awareness of where you are in your false self. And that is the first step, is the awareness of when we are aware and we can step back and observe ourselves. And then by observing ourselves, we're actually stepping into the observer, so which happens to be our true self. So now we're like, whoa, I'm not that little scared, little small, I don't have to identify with the little small scared self. I can go, wow, I am the observer. And that's just the ego mind. I don't have to believe the ego mind that's telling me I'm inferior and not okay. And I don't have to medicate that, and I don't have to negotiate that by staying in my false self and trying to feel okay again, or disappearing because I feel inferior. And then I can go, whoa, well, what is this field? This is the abundant field. The observer is the abundant field. That's the connection to numinous love. And self-inquiry can always help, because it can go, what are you feeling right now, Krista? What is true? And then you can go, oh, what is true is I don't have to identify. I am enough. I am okay. I am fully loved. I am love. I am the entire ecosystem underneath the ground that is a forest of aspens. I am connected to all the other little quaking aspens out there. I'm not alone. And then when I go, then you feel that force field, and you feel more than enough. You're like, whoa, what is that? It's the invincible self, because it holds the whole world. That is what the infinity loop is about, is the thing that I needed my whole life. It wasn't quote unquote religion. It wasn't just meditation. It wasn't spirituality. It was, how do I live in the true self? The part that is truly transformational spirituality, that is not identified with the small self that keeps us separate, but aware of the deeper truth that we are all one and that we are in this infinity loop. That's when Leo said, I don't understand how you can step out of the infinity loop, Krista. He was kind of pointing out what is the breakdown in my sort of metaphor. He goes, because you're always one. And I would say, yes, you're always one. And from a relationship standpoint, you're sort of stepping out, going, I'm not going to keep playing this game with someone who doesn't want to dance.
I was raised to be an asshole. I used to feel sad for my broken past of how my persona was formed around what wasn't whole and holy. Now I just celebrate my U-turn. Krista Bors.
Yeah, and what I'm basically saying there is, once I used to feel shame, the sadness wasn't just the letting go, but it was almost a state of a lower level emotion that was just so sad for my brokenness. And then I push on the pedal of, what an amazing thing to rejoice at how I have transformed, and can celebrate a U-turn. So we can feel into the grief of our brokenness that has set patterns in our lives of kind of what we're drawn to in relationships, or what we may struggle with for the rest of our lives. But that is not the whole story. The other pedal is, and we push on the pedal, which is joyous, which is the bounce of, and let's celebrate that today is the first day of the rest of my life. Today, I have a greater capacity to love myself and others. As in the case with all my writings about the patriarchal system, please know it's not all men I'm referring to. We women are so grateful for the men in our worlds who have learned how to love well. And we have compassion for men who are still figuring it out, just like we women are. It seems everywhere we go, people are talking about the men and women thing. I was raised to be an asshole, but I'm repenting, is a line Leo said should go on a t-shirt. At 67 years of age, when I wrote this, now he's 74, he's had some time to reflect on the state and struggle of men raised under the shadow of the patriarchal system. He's written about the cost of being raised by his famous actor father with the same name, a dead-end kid, and what a son picks up from the front row. This is back to the father wound, too. I was raised to be an asshole, but I'm repenting is a pretty humble and aware thing to say. I applaud him for the witty proclamation and t-shirt ideas. Leo said, I was raised by a chauvinistic, alcoholic misogynist. It was normalized. It was implicit bias, which is biases we don't even know we have. I had no idea the impact I was having on women until I started listening, really listening to women and not being defensive. And the interesting thing is this growth happened after we broke up, and he started hearing from other women's stories. When I was able to get my ego out of the way and put myself in their place, that was a huge wake-up call and very painful. I had this moment when all I wanted to do was apologize to every woman for my asshole behavior. I've been able to actually feel the pain of my women friends, the things they've been through with men in their lives, and not because these men want to be hurtful. It's because they don't know any other way. They really, truly believe women are not their equals, and there's nothing wrong with the way they treat them. They think there's nothing wrong with having power over women as long as they take care of them. That gives them the right to control them. One friend told me that when she broke up with her boyfriend of 1 year, he said, "How can you break up with me after all I've done for you?" He emailed her a bill for what he spent on her during the relationship. Everything he did was with a hook. To him, that was normal. "I take care of you, you belong to me." I said, "That isn't a far-fetched story, but a common one with variations." Leo said, "As a man, I'm embarrassed to hear this. I'm apologizing for the boyfriend being such an asshole. This is centuries of hard wiring of men. To fix this, we have to listen. Women are not crazy. They're speaking the truth. We men don't want to hear that our hard wiring is wrong. We'll fight to defend our ego-driven identities. That may have worked when everything was based on survival, but in a scenario where we're evolving to higher awareness levels of love, it's not loving, it's obsolete." This is where it is so sad when I said the solutions aren't working, and what I meant is the attempts at solutions. Men can't hear this anymore because they can't really, they're struggling to look at where this could be true because of the way women are now bashing men, because of bash the patriarchy, attacking masculinity and almost a hatred of masculinity. It is so the either or.
Right. Instead of the healthy criticism, it's the blaming to the ultimate part. And when you're blaming someone, it's a natural response for them to defend themselves.
And it's that women are right. If the message was coming, it's being right, what we were saying. If women were coming, and this is why I believe we need to be so skillful in how we communicate. If women were coming with the holistic way of talking to men, of dropping into the infinity loop, to set the stage of what masculinity is, to own their own contributions and their own weaknesses, and a call to say we all want men and women, male and female, however that looks, to change and to up level to this new human together. This is what is so beautiful. This is what isn't working for us. This is, as women, this is our shadow. This is what we want to work on. We want to be in this infinity loop together. And that is why men can't go, God, the bashing. I mean, it's been going on for quite a while, even like back on sitcoms where the father figure is the idiot. And so it's very hard sometimes for men to hear the truth of what Leo is saying here. And if we really get still, we can go, oh, that's what women are talking about. How could that be true? How could that be in me or maybe in my father? What could I have picked up under unconscious bias of how I see women? What is still a carryover from my generations past? So we've gone to, so women are so great and we don't need men anymore in kind of a narrative. It's very hard to hear this, and how men are really struggling right now to find their way, because there is a lot of help for women now in work, in resources, in schooling, in jobs, in psychological. Men are falling behind and not sure where they are in society and how to navigate this. How sad that the behavior comes from men's insecurities. I hear these concepts being taught today by chauvinistic men. They may hide it in well-crafted language and say it's based on our deepest gender needs, but it's crazy talk nevertheless. So there is the both and where, yes, there are things that are inherently in gender evolutionary needs of even roles that we could play or how we see things, how we see the berries so we can find things in the fridge, and they were out hunting so they can see farther distance. I mean, there are things that you could say women are really wired for, some of the nurturing or some of the stability into the home, and what men are. I have seen chauvinistic men then couch this and twist. You were saying that, Riley. You can twist all spiritual language. You can twist all psychological studies. You can twist anything to manipulate and dominate and control another human being. And I've seen, I'm speaking again of my necessary nemesis, who used this David Data, who is into David Data and his work on masculinity and femininity, to always try to put me into, and women, seeing women as like, we are there for their harem. We are there to just support men. Leo said, if the idea is to become more loving human beings, then men have to change. I said, for both men and women to change, to transcend our insecurities and hardwiring that doesn't serve us, we must learn how to live more from our true selves, our abundant selves. The definition of repenting is making a U-turn. It means actually metanoia, which is to change your mind. Learning to live more from the true self, where we no longer seek to control one another, is the ultimate U-turn. We don't have to continue to live as dead-end kids.
Could you give us an example of when a man in your life was unaware that what they were taught and looking out for women equaled control? Like when a man has tried to control you and they didn't even know that they were just trying to be superior?
I see it all. I could give so many examples from my life because they have been in that role. It's been said that part of what's going on is men being in control, and they would even say the white man being in control, how that is being taken from them, of having the dominant role is terrifying for them. And that's some of what is creating the instability that they're freaking out. And I think there's truth there.
A weak man lashes out. A strong man does not worry about his status or position because he knows he is a strong man. But those that are weak are worried about the ground they stand on.
Yeah, and so I would say that's, again, they can dominate, they can shut down anything that threatens the defensiveness. I mean, I could give so many examples from my life. I mean, Leo, it's sad. I mean, I'll just say one of the reasons that contributed to our breaking up was I was telling him he was doing this, and he couldn't hear it. And he couldn't hear it, and he couldn't hear it. He couldn't hear it. He could hear it. He couldn't hear it. I was thinking about someone I was working with, and he was very insecure and very threatened. And the way his father treated his mother, like she was a dumb shit. And he would start treating me that way. So it would be he had all this respect for me. Oh my gosh. But then in practice, I was embarrassed for him. So, I'm thinking about other jobs that I have been in consulting where you are and I'll tell you even things with clients in today, when they are in these quote unquote woke companies, and someone will be so inappropriate, dominating, making jokes that are they're not even funny, that are putting women down. And they will get a pass based on what role of how they make money in the company. So I don't know, you want to give me pushback to all this? It's probably hard to hear, but it's the message is, how do we women not be this angry, judgmental energy, but how do we see ourselves in another and realize how we need each other and help each other heal, and see each other as, see them as the little boy and us as the little girl, as we're figuring it out.
That is the truth. We're just figuring it out together. Thank you again so much for joining us on the Infinity Loop Group journey. And please share, share with your friends, and let's continue this conversation. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.